Hello, everyone. Hello, dear the House of Tauro viewers and the members. I hope you are fine. And today we're very, very glad and we're very happy to have an opportunity to have an outstanding conversation with the Jason Hoke. And before you meet Jason and he will introduce himself by himself, let me introduce him what I found about him. So Jason Hoke is a second generation dogman, having once been a professional handler, which he gave up to pursue his career as a judge. President of the Great Dane Club of America, Jason is actively involved in all levels of the dog world, including being a TV commentator on Fox Sports for America's most popular dog show, the Westminster Kennel Club. So perhaps you are very curious now. Jason, welcome to our House of Tauro evening session.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to everybody and hopefully get to know a little bit about myself and give a perspective from my point of view.
Definitely, definitely. So Jason, let's start. Can you briefly tell us about yourself, about how you were introduced into the dog world? How did everything started? What kind of breed it was, etc.?
Sure. So my beginnings are a little diverse. I first started with German Shepherds, which most people don't know. And we had, in America, they were kind of divided into two styles. You had the ones that went to the all breed shows and the ones that went to the club shows. And I had the kind that went to the club shows. And we co-bred with another breeder. And then my parents became interested in Great Danes. And, you know, this is when I was 5 and 6. So they had show dogs all my life. And then I was introduced to all these different breeds. And Great Danes became our passion of breeding. And I continued that through my childhood into early adulthood. And so Great Danes are really where my passion began.
What did attracted you to these breeds?
I think their nobility, I think the regalness that they have, you know, while they're a giant breed, they're so gentle and calm. And, you know, I think they appeal to a lot of people that think you can't have a giant breed because they're not as high energy as some of the other breeds. And, you know, they're more amenable to a lot of different environments. So.
All right. So you mentioned that your parents started to breed the dog. So like being a second generation dog person, I would call, do you think it was advantage? And if yes, why so?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, you certainly learn being in a family that breeds dogs, animal husbandry. You know, you learn proper care, proper medication to give when they're ill. You really learn everything about how to care for dogs. And, you know, thankfully my family was very involved in the sport and taught me as much as they possibly could with what they had available to them. So, you know, that's where it all begins.
Okay. So I suppose that it was kind of the very good advantage for you.
Yeah, I think so. I believe so.
You had kind of the mentors behind you always, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. You have to have mentors. And, you know, it started with my parents. And in our breed, you know, there was a very famous woman named Anna Mary Kaufman of Mount Dania Kennels. And I played on the hills of her kennel. You know, she had a beautiful place in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I was there probably every week with her dogs and the puppies and listening to her and listening to other people talk to her. So that's mentorship's everything in this sport.
Okay. Can you give us some highlights about your time as a breeder by briefly sharing some of the success stories you had?
Sure. You know, like I said, I started breeding Great Danes. The Shepherds were my family's. And I also bred Pekingese on a limited basis and Maltese and Dachshunds as well. So I'm kind of all over the board in size and make and shape. But with Great Danes, you know, we bred Fawn and Brindle. So, you know, that you kind of stuck to your color group back in the day. And we had great success. One of my most famous dogs was a dog that finished at 6 months of age as championship and went on to win 20 best in shows. So he was quite a famous dog and did a lot of winning as a young dog.
Okay. 20 best in shows. Sounds very
Yeah, and then for a young Great Dane in the States, that's pretty. The record was just broken in the States for top winning Great Dane, and I think it was 32. So he wasn't far off. He had to be retired early, but I think he would have done very well and gotten pretty close to that record.
Okay, outstanding, outstanding. Yeah. So, I mentioned that you were a professional handler. So
Yes.
how long was it, and why did you decided to give up?
Well, this goes back to the mentorship. When Great Danes, when you showed them in the States, it was really an all-day affair. So if you were at the Great Dane ring, you were there all day. There was usually 100 plus dogs. So I was always intrigued by the handlers and what they did, and I was also interested in other breeds. So what I did when I was really young is I started apprenticing, and that might have just been when I was a child, going back to somebody's motorhome and getting the liver or the bait for the dog and getting a spray bottle to cool them down. And eventually some of these handlers took me under their wing and allowed me to do more, maybe walk a dog to the ring. That was a big deal for a kid, to be able to take some champion dog to the ring for somebody. And it just grew from there. And I always had an interest. I never really stayed around the Great Dane ring because I wanted to see other breeds. So my interest peaked in other breeds very early. And I think that's what really brought me to becoming a professional handler. And then I moved to California for college, and I worked for a all breed handler for years. I worked for him for almost 5 years. And then after that, I thought, well, I have a little weakness in my all breed handling ability. I wanted to learn terriers because they're so specialized. So then I went to work for a terrier handler as well to really refine, all my grooming techniques and kind of round out my knowledge because it's such a specialized group.
Okay. And then you started, but as I understood, you gave up being a handler and decided to go to the judging part, right?
Yeah, so I think in life you always have to follow your passions, and breeding dogs is still a passion of mine, judging is a passion, but I loved food, I loved to cook, and I was always intrigued by it. So at one point in my early 30s, maybe mid 30s, I just decided to go to culinary school, and I
Okay.
did that while I showed dogs. So I took a double major in culinary school. I did culinary arts and restaurant management, and then I took a major in catering. And I did that during the week when I had time, and then I would go show dogs and come back, and it was really fulfilling. And my first job out of culinary school was in a one of only 13 what are now Michelin star restaurants in the country, and that was my first job right out of school. So it was quite a trial by fire, I think.
And challenging as well, right?
Very, yeah. It's a different world. It's a hard world, the restaurant world.
Okay. So let's connect then two things. Being a handler or have a huge experience in handling the dogs, and then being a judge. So what valuable lessons do you think you learned as a professional handler that help you to be an outstanding judge? Can you share some?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because this comes up very often, even in the judge's application process, because here in the States, you can apply as a breeder judge, or you can apply under a different system, which is more catering to the handlers that showed a lot of dogs. And I think if you bred dogs and you show dogs professionally, you have two different viewpoints in your head. You have the breeder's viewpoint, and I think that's probably the most valuable because you've been in the whelping box, you've raised them, all their growth stages, you have your finite lines that you don't want to allow dogs that you're judging to cross because of what your experience as a breeder. But then as a professional handler, you have such a broad experience of being exposed to so many more dogs in a breed. So, I talk about this like if Pekingese. So if you're a Pekingese breeder, it's that you have very limited amount of dogs because they don't produce many dogs, maybe 2 or 3 a litter or something like that. And so you breed and you breed and you breed. And after 20 years, the most dogs you could have been exposed to were maybe 40, 50 dogs in your breeding program.
Yeah.
Well, as a handler, I might show 40 or 50 Pekingese a year. And then I see puppies that owners bring me, and I evaluate them and I learn. And so, then you get this really broad experience as a professional handler that you maybe aren't allowed to have as a breeder because you're confined within your breed. So it's, you have these two parallel roads that kind of intersect at some point. And it's quite interesting to balance that out in your head while you're judging.
Yeah, okay. So, sometimes when you are the breeder, you know very well your dog, you know what are the advantages, for example, and
Of
then
course.
the handler shows those advantages, and you as like a judge, you already recognize these things probably.
Right. And you also know when, as especially as a professional handler, you also know when they're trying to hide something by
Exactly.
doing something else, and maybe that's a disadvantage breeders have because, they're going in with a really finite eye, whereas I've done all the tricks of the trade. So, they might not have been exposed to that because, sometimes breeders don't prefer to show their own dogs. They hire a professional handler, and that they don't see the things that go on behind the scenes. It's even just in the ring, moving a foot at the right time so the judge doesn't see that, a dog toes out or something like that. There's all these little things handlers do to manipulate what a judge sees, and it really takes a good judge to be able to see past all of that.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. You talk so passionately about the handling dogs. What do you miss about the being a professional handler?
I was pretty competitive. So I won in the States. We have 7 groups compared to the 10 at FCI, and I had best in show winners in all 7 groups. So
All right.
yeah, I showed on a pretty highly competitive level. I was partnered with David Fitzpatrick for a long time, and he's very famous for Pekingese. He won best in show at Westminster with them, and so we had dogs that were top dog all breeds in the States. We had top toy dogs, I showed a very famous herding dog that was one of the top herding dogs, top sporting. So, I do miss the competitive part of it. Everyone, I just bought a new Whippet puppy a couple months ago, and he's about a year old now, and I'm excited to show him, but I don't know if I want to go back and do it again. So, it's that quandary because I am competitive, and you have to represent yourself very well. So it's a judge too.
Great to hear. In this group, in the House of Tauro, we have many pet lovers, and might be that after this conversation, some of them would like to become a professional handlers. So,
Sure.
is there any advices from your side for those who are thinking that they would like to go to this path to be a professional handler, and what qualities they need to have? Can you give us something?
I think the first and foremost quality you have to have as a professional handler is understanding how to care for dogs. If you don't know how to care for a dog, you shouldn't be in this position at all because you're responsible for many, many dogs and their well-being. So I think, understanding nutrition, understanding health, understanding potential health issues that can come up while you're traveling. I mean, I can tell you there's thousands of things that happen while you're on the road that you just would never experience at home. And
Yeah.
if you don't start with the foundation of that, then you should never be entrusted to have a dog. And and then you have to learn who to work. You have to work for somebody. You have to train. You have to apprentice. I think is very important. I don't think just because you show your own dog that gives you the ability to be a professional handler.
All
I
right.
think you have to progress beyond a simple owner handler and learn a different trade because it's a specialized trade.
We talked about the mentorship in breeding. Does the mentorship in handling is also very important?
Absolutely. I mean, I positioned myself when I was young to go work for some very well-known, well-established, very good reputation handlers. And, they taught me so much. And, what you have to understand if you're a professional handler, especially if you're going to go more the all breed route, is that every breed is so intrinsically different. You can't go into the ring and show a basset hound like you do a Great Dane. It's a different breed. Their function's different, so their temperament's different, and the way they're presented it should be different. So you really have to learn all the intricacies of each breed before you attempt to show them as a professional.
Okay. So guys, listeners, the mentorship, don't forget the mentorship is
Absolutely.
okay. And when we talk a little bit more about the judging, you are one of the much younger judges in AKC and has produced, and certainly someone with a large number of breeds and groups under your belt. Is it the ultimate ambition to be kind of the all breed judge? how far away you are from that goal, because you are a very competitive person, I understand, because you need handling,
Yeah,
because you are.
I think it's a little different though with the judging. You know, I've taken a different route than I think a lot of my fellow judges, and whatever they choose is fine. But my feeling is that you shouldn't just chase after a group and try to, you know, get that group and then move on to another one. I think what you need to do is become impassioned by a breed and learn that breed and then apply for that breed. I think, and which is why I have in America, I don't have all the groups, but I have breeds in every group but one. But I hand chose those because I felt I had a good knowledge of them. I didn't choose them because it would help me finish a group. So, you know, in America, a lot of the show chairmans are a little annoyed with me because, you know, I'll have almost all the hounds or almost all the non-sporting, but I don't have them all. And it's hard for them to hire people because of not having the completed group. But I do a lot of breeds. So, but I'm passionate about those. And I want to, the breeds I don't have, I want to learn more about before I apply. So I don't know if I want to be an all breed judge. It may happen, but that part I'm not competitive about, I don't think.
Ah, all right, okay. So also you are one of the AKC judges who has started to judge overseas, right? And you are
Yes.
traveling in the countries, in the FCI countries. So
Yes.
how difficult for you is to switch from the AKC standards to the FCI? Are they really so significantly different?
In the grand scheme of things, I would say they're not significantly different. There are a few breeds in their native countries that we see and throughout the FCI countries that are strikingly different than what we have in America. And it's my duty as an American judge to go to the FCI countries and study what their style of dog is based on their interpretation of the standard. And it's my job to adapt to that. I can't apply my American sensibility to say judging English Springer Spaniels. They don't look the same. So if I go in expecting to judge American style of an English Springer Spaniel, it's not going to be present, and I'm going to set myself up for a big disaster as judging, and they're not going to like me either. So, and I've seen some Americans fall into that trap where they go to the FCI countries and they are presented a breed that's significantly different because they're judging it in their home country, and we've changed them somewhat. And those judges that can adapt, it just does not a good mix. So you really have to study where you're going to go and what style of dog they have.
Okay. I talked with someone from the kinology world, I would say, and they said that especially the handling is very different in US and in Europe. I mean, in terms of like kind of the standards. So as a American judge and professional ex-handler, I would say,
Sure.
how do you find that presentation and handling of dogs? Is it US? It's much more far away from the Europe.
No, I think on the high level, you know, the dogs you see winning at the World Dog Show, the European Show, Crufts, those dogs are presented on a very high level. You know, maybe where you see a little difference is maybe in the non-champion classes. You know, but we see that here. We see owner handlers that come in and, you know, they're new. They don't have the technique, especially say in terriers where hand stripping so specialized. And, you know, if they haven't had enough practice, they can't do it as well as a professional does. So, but I think in general, there's all the ability levels in America and there's the same in Europe. So, you know, I think it's a fallacy that we have, maybe we do groom, but I think sometimes we groom too much. I think it's a little excessive. You know, I'm terrible when I judge Shih Tzus because I despise that ridiculous top knot that's way up on the head that changes what a Shih Tzu should be, which is a low slung, moderate length neck dog into this, you know, giraffe in the ring, and it's not what they're supposed to look like. So I think sometimes in America maybe we go too far. So
Okay, so if we touch this topic, in your opinion, what is the right balance? You know,
I think grooming is fine to the point where it does not exaggerate what the true breed type should be. So if you have something that says moderate, it shouldn't be extreme. If you have something that says a medium length neck, don't groom it to make it look like it has, 50 feet of neck. You have to even, and it comes down to even now, this I will say, in some shows, the running around the ring so fast is, I don't understand. It's dizzying. I in many countries I have to ask how to say slow down, because they just run, they don't look at their dog. So that part I would say, slow down, everybody. Even it's not a race, I mean, you're dragging these dogs off their feet and they lose their beautiful balance, and some of them are beautiful dogs, but then we can't see it. So that is different. We see that a lot. Yeah, that one I would change.
I think that it's a good tip, don't be too fast, not to make the judge dizzy,
Yeah, it's just, it's like a frenzy when they all start running, and these dogs, their balance isn't built for, if they were running, they'd be at a gallop. So to race them so fast in a trot, and a trot's a trot, it's a moderate speed gait around the ring. So
yeah,
that exaggeration I really wish would go away everywhere in the world. So
yeah, it's a very good tip. It's a very good tip. So as fairly young person, yourself, you have always been a great advocate of junior showmanship, or we call it in Europe like junior handling.
yes.
Handling. Can you tell us a little bit about your passion with this? Why it's so important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I started in that, and I think what junior showmanship or junior handling does for a kid is it teaches them a lot of things. It teaches them how to interact with a dog. It teaches them, I think what it does is I hope it does. It teaches them, what proper type is, and then how to present that proper type in the ring to the judge. I think it teaches breed appropriate presentation. And I think probably more importantly than anything, it teaches sportsmanship. It teaches communication skills, because these kids eventually end up, as they get a little older, interacting with more adults on an adult level versus kids in high school, just running around and doing what they want. I think if you grow up in the dog world like I did, your interactions are much more adult oriented than youth oriented. And I think it's a good thing. I think we learned how to be better humans by showing dogs, because you have to tolerate your losses. You have to show good sportsmanship and congratulate people. It teaches you a lot of etiquette that's missing, frankly, right now in the world. So,
all right. Let's talk a little bit about the Crufts. A little bit more in what related to Europe. Okay. So
sure.
I know that you had the privilege and the great honor of judging junior handling at Crufts Dog Show. Do you
Correct.
think enough emphasis is placed by the kennel clubs in promoting their juniors here? And can you name maybe a few clubs who, in your opinion, are doing a great job of promoting junior handlers?
I think in general, we see even better participation in Europe than the States. Crufts obviously is a perfect example of a true evaluation of the youth's ability, because they change dogs and they've never met the dog. So it's judging it is even fascinating when you see children, switching dogs and how it works or it just falls apart for them and they can't bounce back. But I think the clubs in general, they have to do more to include the youth, because what I'm seeing even in the States is now the kids are becoming professional handlers before they're even 18. They don't understand. They just go right to professional handling because some people ask the kids to show their dogs, and then other people see the kid doing a nice job and they become professional. We have to slow them down a little bit and maybe encourage the competition a little more to make it more valuable. Crufts does a great job, and I think Westminster does a great job because they offer scholarships. Del Val Kennel Club in the States, they offer scholarships for competition, and it teaches them, you can compete, but there's a goal here. You're going to get your education, and we're going to help you do that. And I think that's really important. I think you should still get an education, even if you're going to be a professional handler, because you're going to run a business.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, it sounds very much as a very serious profession, right?
Yeah.
The sooner you start, if you put more attention to the kids who wants to be a handlers, then you can really grow them very professional ones.
Yeah, and it's not even being a handler. I hope for the future of our sport that some of these kids become such dedicated breeders and stick with the breed or choose another one. I certainly have, diversified my interest in breeding, and I hope that by encouraging the youth of our sport to stay involved and make them active in the clubs. And everybody's getting older, or we say constantly our sport is graying. Well, these kids that we're seeing, if we don't say, hey, join a club, I mean, these are ways to involve the kids, get them in a club, get them to steward for you and teach them how the ring inside of the ring works. I wholeheartedly, and this is something I'd prefer to work on at home, is setting up a junior judging program where we teach the kids how to judge. We don't have, like you said, we don't have many young judges in the States. There's probably under 50, maybe 20 judges. So, and the majority of our judges are 70 and 80 years old. So there's a disparity there that we have a big problem with coming up. So we have to engage the youth more.
Yeah, it's very, very nice to hear that you are very passionate about that. And I'm sure you will be a very big part of that.
I hope so.
You mentioned about the Westminster. Let's go back to the US about the Westminster. And I know that you had a wonderful opportunity of being one of the commentators for Westminster Kennel Club dog show. Can you tell us why, in your opinion, this is the America's finest show, both from the personal perspective and then as a show scene in the United States, like in general?
Sure. Well, I think part of the Westminster is its tradition. It's the second longest running consecutive sporting event in the country. It's second to the Kentucky Derby. So there's this history involved where it was formed as a gentleman's club to actually evaluate breeding stock. It wasn't for them to sit around and have a cocktail and do nothing. They wanted to see what their dogs were and how they compared to other dogs. So it really started out in a great tradition, and now it's evolved obviously into this great show, and it's a great spectacle to come to Westminster and be in Madison Square Garden with the lights and it's 100,000 people there. So, cheering on their favorite dog. I mean, you can't ask for more than that. And, just like Crufts does, just like the World Dog Show does, the European Dog Show, they're a spectacle and they're great for us, but think what they do for the public view. I mean, that's really important because we need to get people interested. And hopefully that's what these big shows all over the world do, is promote our sport and promote purebred dogs and get people interested in them.
All right. Can you tell us exactly what you specifically do during the Westminster show?
Sure. So for the commentator job, I either work daytime or nighttime. I've done both. This coming year, I'll be doing daytime. And they're both a little different. So the daytime program, it's very fast. So we go from breed ring to breed ring. We kind of jump in during judging. We'll talk about maybe the judge. We'll talk about the dogs and the breeds, and we'll try to give, really specific characteristics of the breed so that we can engage the general populace so that they may hear, oh, that dog's good in an apartment. Okay, well, maybe I can get that dog. Or, if you want it, you do have to understand there's grooming involved. We really try to educate them on the pros and some of the challenges you may have. And, we also try to tell stories. If there's a mother and daughter in the ring, we represent that well because we want to show it's a family sport, which it certainly is. And, and then the nighttime, that's more about the groups and best in shows. And that it gets a little more involved with the dogs winning, what they've won, could it possibly go best in show? So, it becomes a little more of the build up to the end, the finale.
Okay. So do you need to be very well prepared before you do the commenting job? Like, if you say about mother and sister or something like that. So how does the preparation it works?
It's a challenge because
That's why
they kind of give us a list of breeds that they're gonna try to cover, but usually by the halfway through the program, maybe a judge was too slow, so we can't go to that ring, or a breed finished really fast. So we do a lot of thinking on our feet really quick, because the producer might say in the truck, this is a Saluki, and as soon as the breed pops on the screen, it's a Greyhound, and you have to erase what he just said, because you're talking in your ears, in production, and you hear a voice and something comes on the screen that's had nothing to do with what they said was coming. So it's a challenge, but it's a lot of fun. I've tried, and it's a learning process, to read about every breed's history, every breed's requirements, some of the salient breed traits that they have to have, so that if something's different, say the ring on the Afghan tail or the prominent hip bones, I have to explain that to people, because the lay person seeing prominent hip bones on an Afghan, which is a breed trait, they're going to assume in their mind, well, that's a emaciated dog. So we have to educate people really quick on things that they may not understand why they're going on or why they look the way they do.
Okay. Was there any funny stories or any curiosities that you can share with us from your commenting job? I mean, that it was something very kind of...
Well, you always have the foibles in the ring. It seems like every year we always have one woman lose their slip while they're running. It seems to happen, and I don't know why we always seem to be on camera with it when it happens. So there's little things, and we try not to dwell on them too much, because the people are embarrassed and stuff.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
and we love to see like a dog interacting with its handler, and in a funny way, where they roll over and want to get petted in the middle of this serious breed competition. So there's all kinds of things that happen that can relate to the public in a good way, and just kind of endear them even more, that we're all human, and dogs are almost human. So
okay, yeah, it's very much the family members, at least, right?
yeah.
So, now I think more and more people are curious to go and participate in Westminster, or at least to go to watch the show, because of all those flashing lights, 100,000 people, after the COVID, maybe it will be back again, those 100,000s. But if you need to name like 3 shows that you should visit in US, what kind of the shows it should be, from your opinion?
That's a good question. I think we have, throughout the country, there's a couple really must-see shows. I think if you're a terrier person, or not even a terrier person, you should go to Montgomery County Kennel Club, which is an all-terrier show. I think that show is the best show for typifying what a group of dogs is and what they should be, with beautiful entries. They typically have very qualified judges. And it's in October, and it's one I would highly recommend, even if you're not a terrier person, because you'll be amazed to see the quality of dogs that you'll see. I think there's 2 on the West Coast that are tremendous to go to. There's Del Val Kennel Club, which I already mentioned. They have tons of breed club shows included with their all breed shows, so the quality is extremely high. And then there's also a show called Wolfstock, which is a fascinating show. It's a big show, probably 2,000 to 3,000 dogs for us, which is big. But everybody dresses in 70s wear, so they're all in bell bottoms and hippie clothes, and it kind of harkens back to the old days of dog shows, where you sat around and you had picnics and you had tailgates afterwards, and everybody sat around the braid ring and talked. We've kind of lost that. So that show brings back this nostalgia of what a show can be, and everybody just relaxes, and it takes that competitive edge off. And then I think for sheer numbers of dogs, we have Louisville Kennel Club. It's 4 days, 4 shows, and they get 3,000 to 4,000 dogs, and the quality is extremely high there. So
okay,
I think those are some of the best. There's Houston Kennel Club in July, which is beautiful, an indoor area, and they have huge entries as well, and it's run perfectly. So we have quite a few really great shows out there.
Okay, so I think that a lot of our members, they're very excited now. They want to go. Tell me, from your opinion, how easy or how difficult is from the overseas person, you know, the foreigner, to come over to US or to Westminster and compete successfully?
I think if you have a great dog, you can win at any of these shows. You know, we've seen some really tremendous dogs come from overseas. Mick, the Kerry Blue Terrier, he went best in show at Westminster. He won the group, I believe, a couple of times there. We just had the Borzoi from Japan come and win the reserve best in show at Westminster. You know, and these are dogs that, you know, at that time weren't campaigned that heavily. The Kerry Blue was, but you know, I think we see a lot of breed winners even now coming from Europe and Asia, and they're beautiful dogs, you know, and I think everybody's past the mentality of you can't compete anywhere else. I think the dog show world has opened up so much that we're all, you know, all judges, I think European, Asian, and American, you understand now the value and the ease of which we can show in other countries. And I think it's becoming much more accepted.
Okay, this was my next question. If the US is more accepting the foreigners, you know, to compete with, so
Yeah, I mean, you know, I know a lot of times there's some handlers that go to the foreign countries to find dogs. I mean, you know, I know Bill McFadden goes to Europe all the time and looks at fox terriers and other breeds, and you know, Valerie Nunes Atkinson, she showed the Borzoi, and she's brought dogs over, you know, and you know, they send their dogs over there too. So you know, our dogs are going. You know, we see a lot more American dogs overseas now, which is good. You know, and they all have value. You know, the European dogs bring something different, and the American dogs do. So you know, we're becoming much more of a unified group, I think, which is great.
yeah, it sounds very very unified.
Yeah.
You know, before when we announced that we're going to have a conversation with you, we got some questions, and one of
Okay.
the questions is that, you know, if someone wants to come over to US as for the first time to compete, right? Which do
Hmm.
you think they would be better compete at? Is it the national specialty or a big show like Westminster or your mentioned two other ones? And why?
You know, they all have their pros and cons. You know, Westminster, depending on what's going on with the club, it sometimes is an all championship show. So if that restriction's in place, then you obviously have to make an American champion first. So then go to the national specialty and try to win. We see a lot. It's very interesting now. We see a lot of foreign dogs of really high quality coming, and they'll come to the national specialty. And usually with the national specialty, there's accompanying all breed shows or club shows. And a lot of these foreign dogs come and make their championship up in three shows, 4 shows. And so, you know, I think you can choose whatever you would like. You just, you know, sometimes there are restrictions as far as Westminster, but you know, it just depends on the time. You know, they're limited with the amount of dogs they can have, so they have an entry limit. So it can be a challenge to get entered there. But you know, you know, if you have a great dog, go for Westminster and even a national specialty. And there's always all breed shows you can come to that are quite large, where if you know, can come for a couple weeks and you have a good dog, you might be able to make a championship up as well.
Okay, okay. And as a president of the Great Dane Club of America, I think we didn't mention this during our conversation that you are
Yeah.
also the president. So who do you think has more influence over a breed? Is it like a national breed club, or the mother organization like American Kennel Club? Or is this something both we have to work for the sake of the breed?
I think we're symbiotic in how we work together, but I think overall, the breed club, the National Breed Club, is where the strength lies for each individual breed, because you know, the breed club has a lot of duties. You know, so we have a membership that we support. In the Great Dane Club, we have over 50 specialty clubs that are underneath our umbrella. So we have all those members as well, and all those clubs as well. But you know, our duty as a parent club, you know, we hold the rights to the standard of the breed. So that AKC does not. It's just like FCI, where the mother country would hold the standard. The Great Dane Club of America is in charge of the standard. And then we have, we do rescue. So we have, in the Great Dane Club of America, we have over 40 rescue organizations that work with us to protect our breed. So that's very important. Then we have health and research. So that's where we address breed specific issues, sometimes health issues, sometimes questions. We're doing a lot of color studies in Great Danes because we have such diverse colors. We're doing a lot of genetic research within color. And then we also do, health research on problems that have been present in Great Danes, trying to, that's our goal. Whereas AKC, they have health programs as well and health research, and that's through the Canine Health Foundation. But some of them may not be breed specific. So, we're more breed specific in our research, whereas AKC is a little more broad and then reaches out to us if it is something that affects us. So, I think the breed club is, we have a lot more opportunities for education, and the AKC helps us with that. I just did a webinar on the breed standard, which was through the Great Dane Club of America, but AKC shared it to the populace and all the new judges. So that was great. I think the breed club is where if you're not involved in the breed club, you're doing a real disservice to your breed, because we have so much work to do and educate people. So it's very challenging.
Okay, because there was one more question from our members that they say, do people underestimate the importance of national breed clubs? Why they're very, very vital in your opinion? But this is what you were saying there.
Yeah, I think people lose sight of the fact of what we really do. They think, the board of these breed clubs sits upon this high perch and is, I don't know what they think, but I've seen it certainly going on. And, we do so much work in outreach and educating the public. And, we have a Facebook group set up, and I can't tell you how much work that is relating to the general populace, because we answer so many breed specific questions, from health to care of the dog, to just simple things like, oh, my dog's knuckle looks big, is something wrong? And we explain, well, it's probably just growing, and that's what Great Danes look like. But people don't know. So, the breed clubs, especially the national club, has to be present at all times to support not only its members, but its public. And that's, it's a hard job. And all the volunteers that work with me are tremendous people. And, the breed clubs have to really have a strong presence, even fighting animal rights groups and trying to, work with them and figure out a way that, we can all come together and understand what we're doing and how we're trying to help the breeds instead of hurt the breeds. So.
Okay. Jason, the last question from my side. Our members, they decide that they need to go to US. They understand which dog shows they need to go from our conversation, right? Is there any advice, or are there any advices, or what kind of the homework they need to do before they go to US to compete in the show?
Well, I think if you have friends in the US, I think I would certainly reach out to them and ask them, when you're planning on entering shows, what are the requirements? What are the classes? The classes are a little different in America versus the FCI countries. So they have to understand that. I think they should also ask, am I showing under knowledgeable judges? I mean, what, 95% of all judges do their best. They try to do a good job, but there's a couple out there. So always ask if you think you're showing to the right people, if they're, really knowledgeable of a breed, and if your type of dog will appeal to them.
Okay. Yeah, it's good advice. You ask someone who is already in there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I hate for somebody to go in blind and then enter the wrong class and not be set up the way they need to be to show. And once you're at the show, hopefully you have a friend there that you can, figure out how the program works, and it's pretty similar. So if you show a lot, you can figure out our system fairly well. It's not too complicated.
Very nice. Jason, you are very, how can I say, the comprehensive person, right? Being the professional handler, the president of the Great Dane Club, the judge, the commentator, judging in the Crufts show, etc., etc. I really like your values. I really like when you say about the mentorship, that someone can help you to lead your path in the way you want to go. That someone can like support the vision of what they
Right.
have, and someone is always behind you, helping you to grow. It's very nice. And by the way, being a good chief and starting with the Michelin star restaurant, right?
Right. That's just a bonus.
Yeah. It's a bonus
And
of every.
people keep trying to get me to cook for the dog shows too. I said, come on, I can only do so much. It's too much. I'd love to, but maybe for some charity event or something, I'll do it. But
Yeah. So,
it's more
Jason,
for fun.
thank you very much. It was a very big pleasure and very valuable. So I hope all our Facebook and YouTube members will definitely be very glad to listen our conversation. So thank you very much for this time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Big pleasure, Jason. Good luck
All
and have
right.
a nice day.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.